Hi, and a very, very warm welcome to Stockholm Design Talk, for which the overall theme is Tales of Creativity. And I want to thank you, everyone in the audience, for coming here, and I want to thank everyone in the panelists for coming here to share their knowledge with us today. And on today's panel, we will focus on how to stay creative and brave in a market with a lot of commercial constraints, which I think everyone in the panel is a good representative of. And in the panel, we have Luke Pearson from PearsonLloyd. We have Marianne Goebl, Managing Director at Artek. We have Kasper Salto from Salto and Sigsgaard. We have Mette and Hey, Creative Director of Hey. And my name is Hanna Nova Beatrice. I'm a Designwriter and Editor-in-Chief of a Swedish magazine called Residence. And this will be a really informal chat, and you will have a chance to ask questions afterwards if you want. We have a microphone, so it's just to raise your hand. And I want to start with letting the panel introduce themselves. So if you want to start, Luke.
Okay, I'm Luke Pearson. I'm half of a partnership called PearsonLloyd, and we work in many different fields. Actually, part of the reason for that is to try and maintain a healthy level of creativity and not to become sort of locked into one particular area. So we do transport design, lots of furniture design, healthcare, and recently we've been doing a lot of work in hospitality and hotel design.
Hello, my name is Marianne Goebl, and I'm the Managing Director of Artek. I'm probably what you would call a design animal, having been in the industry for about 15 years in different roles, but I'm particularly interested in this field at the intersection of commerce and culture, because I think that's where things are happening. And I see my own role more that of a facilitator, disseminator, and maybe the person in between the creative side and the market.
Thank you.
I'm Kasper Salto, and I am the half of the company called Salto and Sigsgaard. And my partner Thomas is sitting right down there. Hello, Thomas. And Thomas and I, we met 12 years ago, and we started to discuss design. Thomas, he's an architect, and I'm a designer, and it was very interesting to start this conversation. And since then, we have refined our tool of designing, and we still do it, and we talk a lot about design. So I'm interested in this talk and looking forward to.
I'm Mette. I'm one of the founders of the Danish company Hey. I grew up in this business. My parents had a design furniture store, so I started when I was very young working with designs. I'm taking care of Hey's accessories and textile collection and the more creative things in our company.
Thank you very much. Could you,
It's not like this.
So I wanted to start by posing a question to you, Luke. You've been in the business for about 17 years, so you've been running PearsonLloyd for 17 years, which is a substantial amount of time, and it's been happening a lot of things since then. What do you think are the main changes in the industry and that has affected you throughout these years?
I think obviously one is communication. When we started out, obviously, in fact, I remember the first week of starting out, we got our first email address, and we would wait 2 or 3 days for an email to come in. Now we avoid them. But also simple things like you'd have 1 or 2 magazines that you subscribe to. Some would only come out once every 6 months. So I think the pace of information flow and influence from one company to another or one designer to another was very, very slow. And I think that allowed a kind of real thinking time to produce a movement. So there was bigger difference between the regions, the countries. And now it's literally within seconds, anybody around the world can see what's being done anywhere. And we know we're all talking about this, but I think this influence is really really profound within the industry, and it's also changed expectations within the companies of how quickly they think they can get design, how quickly they think they can get to a good point. And I think good design takes perhaps more time than it ever did before because there's so many people doing it.
How does it affect the way you work in the studio?
I think we have to defend time more than we used to. So we have to push back on the programs and try and say, look, we'd like more space here. It means, I think, you have to try and think more carefully about the brief because it gets locked into the process very quickly. So for us, brief building and understanding whether it's the correct brief are absolutely critical because things run very quickly these days.
And has it changed, because you work completely on briefs, is that correct?
We build briefs and we work on briefs, but we generally, if we get a brief from somebody, we will represent it, or the research we do at the front of the project will redefine it, or strengthen it, or confirm it. Sometimes the briefs from clients are fantastic. Other times we'll actually say, we think you mean this, but could it mean this? And quite often they'll say, actually, yes.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have that front-end dialogue and really try and build a rapport with the client and understand whether you can push things forwards with them as a collaboration.
But this speed, does it affect the way you work creatively in the studio? You are 10 people in the studio?
We're about 15, 16.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, it does. It puts a huge pressure on things, but you have to, at the end of the day, you can't send something out if it's not ready.
No.
But I think there are all sorts of issues. People can do renderings. If you look at some of the blogs these days, you don't know if it's a real product or a rendering. Pretty much anybody can do a high-quality rendering in their bedroom very quickly. So I think there's a perception that if it looks real, it is real. That's quite dangerous. So we still build a lot of prototypes. We still sit in everything that we build and test it. Those things take time.
Yeah.
So I think once we've talked to our clients and informed them how we work, then we can control things a little bit more. But sometimes it takes time, especially with a company that doesn't have a strong design development culture.
And Marianne, during your years at Vitra, you were involved in Vitra Edition, a platform for experimentation, among other things. And you've also worked at collectors' fairs like Design Miami. And from your experience there, what will you bring to Artek?
Well, that's if you put it like this, it's maybe not a natural move from Vitra Edition to Artek. I think what I bring from there to Artek is that you need to keep a certain innocence, like you need to try to block out what's out there to create an environment that allows people to think freely. Because if there's so many restrictions out there, you need restrictions in the design process, but I don't think you need to bring in the restrictions to the market in too early a stage, because it will just not allow coincidence and surprise. And I think that's what you need in the creative process also. So I think trying to create a climate of trust and innocence is what I would like to bring over.
And some of the designers that have been collaborating with Vitra are now also collaborating with Artek. Is that a way to bring the brands closer together now when they have the same owner, or?
No, actually, not at all. I would say, on the contrary, we don't have any intentions to bring the brands closer together. I think Artek and Vitra are both founded on maybe the belief in modernism and the values of modernism, but coming from very different angles. I mean, Vitra being built upon the design heritage of the Eames, which is a mid-century Californian dream of modernism, and Artek having been founded by Alvar Aalto, like the magus of the North, coming from post-war Finland, a completely different setting, but yes, but the same belief and also, in a way, the same belief and also hope to contribute something for everyone in a different way. No, I think the choice of designers is a crucial one. Like, who are the people you want to work with for a very specific task. And I think for Artek, we now obviously have the privilege that we collaborate with Vitra, so we have access to Vitra designers. It's also personal relationships of mine that have been built in the past, but we want to find the right person for the right project. And this can be anyone.
But looking back at the last 10 years, and you've had a few different roles, how do you experience the market has changed, the design industry market?
I mean, I completely relate to what Luke was saying. The pace has changed, but somehow the whole system has been shaken up in every aspect. If you start with the designers, if I look at the designers that are coming out of schools now or have been coming out over the last decade, they don't necessarily think in industry terms at all. They can't do things themselves, like if they have a craft approach anyways, or if they work with new technologies also. So there's this makers community that doesn't even maybe have the industry in mind when they're designing. Then you have the client who's exposed to all the things you've been describing, so they're very well informed and so intelligent, informed. There's new decision makers that they listen to, from the bloggers to the media to their neighbors, who will comment if on all possible channels if they like something or not. And last but not least, also the manufacturers. We are confronted with a whole new set of tools, like new technology, new communication, new distribution models. So everything seems to be changing. At the same time, we're still sitting on chairs with 4 legs or maybe a cantilever. So that's what's for me so astonishing, that the products our industry makes is still pretty close to what the predecessors of the design industry have been doing hundreds of years ago, although the whole context is moving. So I'm curious to see if this will also have an effect on the actual products that we will see.
Mette, you represent quite a young producer, but that has had a huge impact in the last 10 years. How do you, when you look at what has happened since then, how do you balance this act? I mean, it's been speeding up the industry. How do you balance this act of being creative at the same time as meeting the market requirements and reaching out to a broad market?
I think when we started 12 years ago, we just kind of, it's been very like playful and very, when we started, we didn't have a plan about what Hey should be, what it is today. It's just been a very organic way of working. I think there's been a big change in the way that people, they buy design and furnitures today than 10 years ago. I think almost every city have design stores today and furniture stores, and so I think there's a new market of how people, they you know, I think when my parents were buying their furniture, they bought all their things at the same furniture stores. It was more a loyal client at that time. Today, people are so, then it comes again to what we, with communication and the people, they know where to find things. I don't know if I'm...
But how do you think, if you look at what you take into production, do you feel that you have to go with very safe products to meet the pressure of the customer? Or do you put in some wild cards every now and again to challenge it a little bit, to push it forward? Because, I mean, you have the accessory collection as well, where you can be a bit quicker.
The accessories came because we started opening our own stores, and we felt like it was needed to do some extra products to be able to open more stores. So it was also very like something we just felt. And for us, it's we're not having a plan for, but it can be if I in 1 hour meet a person with a new kind of product, and I just feel like we have to do this.
Yeah.
So it's very much about intuition, instinct, belly feeling, also when we started working with Stefan Dietz, for example, and it was this shelf system, and now it's a big collection. So, but it's something which is just
slowly happening.
Yeah.
Kasper, do you want to tell us a bit on how you work with furniture companies? You set up your current studio in 2003, but you also work with companies on your own. Do you want to tell us a bit of how you work?
Yeah. Until 2001, I think, Thomas and I met. But before that, I was working with mostly Fritz Hansen, and not so many actually. I like to pick a few that I like and have a close relation. So until then, I was working with Fritz Hansen and some few others. But when I met with Thomas, it was very interesting because, as Thomas and I often talk about, it is in the dialogue that you solve a lot of things. It's very hard. It's like playing chess with yourself. You have to like switch who is white and who is black now, and who is going to win here. But when you have another person in front of you, you are forced to convince the other person about this is a good idea, this is a good way to go. So we are very much saying to each other that good design comes often through the dialogue. Also with the manufacturers, we tend to drag them in when we are not in the beginning, but later on. It's very important that we have a good manufacturer who can guide this side of the task.
But have you felt any changes? I mean, you've been working long term with your with the companies you've been collaborating with. Have you felt any changes in how they need to act on the market, and has it affected your creativity?
Yeah. I don't think the creativity is changed, because that's our fuel, that's our thing. But I think the industry has changed a lot, and that I can feel working with different companies. You have to, as a company, you have to follow the pace in a way, and that's maybe not so good. I think there are coming so many products out, and they are not really unique. I mean, there's a lot of chairs that looks almost the same, and there's a lot of accessory items that are almost the same. It can be hard to judge if it's this company or this. So I think for Thomas and me, we are very eager to try to refine again what I told before. Refine the tool we have, because that is actually our best thing. I mean, that's our. You can call it a product. I mean, in itself, because it's very important that this tool will be refined all the time, and also changed in the industry, because the industry is changing. But just to say it short, Thomas and I, we are trying to make fewer things but better, and use more time. Also, like Luke said, it's so important that products have the time they need, because otherwise it's so easy to lose small details that can be very important for the final result.
Would you agree on this?
Yes. Yes, in principle. And I think, as Kasper's saying, I think it is, you have to find your own zone, and as you say, Marianne, as well, you have to find your own zone of creativity. And I think, to some degree, it's what I was talking about at the beginning. There's so much information overload. It doesn't necessarily help you, and it's definitely not helping the market, because a lot of companies are just copying each other. I was looking at some products that were stuck on a wall, and I thought, oh, Vitra have done a re-edition in something, but it's another company. It's the same presentation. It's almost the same, and it doesn't help anybody, and it's not helping the consumer. I think a certain amount of choice is good, but then after that, creativity is being damaged and diminished and devalued. And actually, we should be doing the opposite with all this information. It should allow us to filter and be more critical, I think. You know, surely that's the gift of humanity, is communication and the ability to make smart choices. And I feel that we're at a turning point where designers, there's so much of it, there's so much creativity, but there's also so much just activity. But the activity doesn't actually help. And at the moment, we're in a situation where the market's overloaded. So how do you differentiate? How do you do something different that gives you a competitive advantage? There's no point in doing the same. You're just competing for a smaller slice of the same cake.
But do you communicate this with the companies? I mean, you work in a very broad range of subjects, but do you communicate that to the companies that you work with? Well, is that a
yes,
subject?
Mostly we're very lucky that nearly all the companies we work with want that critical difference. Less and less we're finding that they say, well, company X has this product, we need one to compete with it. So what we tend to say, if they do say that, is, well, okay, they've got that product, but we don't have to compete with it. We can understand what it's doing, but maybe we can then design the next in the learning curve, the next in the generation, you know, progression in terms of DNA development. And I think that's what all companies should be trying to do. But it doesn't necessarily happen, partly, I think, because production is so cheap that you can start a company with a relatively small amount of money, go and make a product. 10 or 15 years ago, it was actually quite expensive to make a product and quite expensive to market it. And now if you can get some viral marketing going, which is why it's very exciting for, I think, the generation that are coming out of the colleges at the moment, because they're saying, actually, I can get access to these companies who can make, I've got access to these craft people on this local network. So I think we're also going to see something very interesting emerging in the market where lots of small companies are doing very boutique, bespoke, individual things. And I think that could be a really interesting creative moment. That I think we're witnessing it at the moment. So that's very exciting. That's very positive.
You were touching on that earlier on, Marianne, the small industries and small and designers taking it in their own hands. And I also think the word collaborations, you hear it more and you see it much more. Do you think that is also changed in the last 10 years, or is about to change? That people are collaborating in a different way and the competition is different? We can hold and embrace each other in a different way.
No, definitely. I think I've always been adhering to the author design, you know, giving credit to the person who actually, whose intellectual property is behind the piece of design. And then I see now these young designers who come out of school, they open cooperatives, they put it online, it's open source. They don't seem to even care about it anymore because the idea is more important to them than their own authorship. And I think it's a very interesting phenomenon to follow and to understand what that could mean for us also as a manufacturer. Because what I see at the moment is a lot of creative talent and also a lot of new networks, production networks. What I don't really see happening yet, though, is then this final kick of making it really available to a larger group of people, because you can make a small edition that then also is accessible to a small group of people to maybe a rather high price. And maybe it will not withstand the tests of time in terms of durability, etc. And maybe if we found a way for the industry to collaborate with these new makers' systems, we could be of help to give it this final push that it needs to become a viable, mass-produced, whatever mass means in that context, product, and also help distribute it. Because I think it's happening, but it's happening in a small
but would it
community.
be possible to bring it into this larger good company and keep the creativity in the development of a product together, or would that destroy?
I think you would have to be very generous and intelligent about it. You can't just say, come on in and play our rules, but I think it has to be a new set of rules for such a design or creative approach to survive in the old system. But it's definitely interesting and something I'm personally looking at and trying to understand. I have to admit I'm...
You launch, sorry.
No.
You're launching a new series with the Borelex. Do you want to tell us a bit about how the creativity how long it's been in the development and how long how you worked with keeping the creativity in the whole project?
Yeah, I think we've been in this very privileged position now to somehow start writing a new chapter for Artek. I don't know if all of you are familiar with Artek. It's a Finnish company that was founded 80 years ago by Alto and like-minded visionaries, and who back then were definitely part of the avant-garde. And I wouldn't claim that I'm myself part of the avant-garde today, so we have to find out for us now what means avant-garde today and who are the people who are changing our way of perceiving and using design. And so we also have this incredible heritage, which is at the same time also a bit of a burden, because every designer we talk to, he knows he's designing something that's going to stand next to Alto, which, I mean, I don't know how easy that is for a designer if you know there's not a lot of contemporaries that you're going to be next to, but this one of these godfathers of modernism. So I think with the Borelex we had this fortunate moment of innocence that I mentioned before, which is said, okay, let's get started. We're Artek. We want to develop something that obviously has something to do with our past, but can also move away from it with a certain légèreté. And I mean, for you to judge, because I'm not objective, but I think they've managed to really design an intelligent system that allows to make products that have a value in itself. So each product is stronger than the system. I think that's also a challenge, because you can design a very intelligent system that overwhelms the individual products. And I mean, the process, I think, was also, to get back to your comment, was a very, intuitive one. You talk to the people you think you want to work with, and then you let it go, and you don't try to bring in too many restrictions. I mean, obviously there are things like you want it to be flat packed, or you want it to correspond to the sizes of the books that people are going to put in there, and you want it to be durable and not you test it, etc. But you don't need to overload the process with too many rules.
But going back to you, Mette, you mentioned earlier, your intuition, and you mentioned why the accessory collection started. But if you go back to a few years back, it wasn't such a obvious choice for a furniture company to do that, and it was quite a big step, even if it was organic. But today it's a much more natural thing, and companies are branching out. How do you feel that development, where will that take us? Will it change the way furniture brands are thinking?
For me, I think there's I think it's also very interesting to work with people who have done bigger projects as furnitures, and then suddenly they have a great idea of a beautiful little object, or and then what we see, for example, when we started working with Scholten and Byings from Holland, that what I saw is a lot of the people who reacted on their products and their colors and their materials. They could not afford to buy a product made by them because it was all extremely expensive. So I met with them and I asked them to do some tea towels and some bed linen and some carpets and stuff like that. And I must admit that it was not an easy thing because all our salespeople were used to sell furnitures and things like that, and suddenly we we introduced this new collection to them, and it was very far away of selling a office chair or a couch or something. That cushions is something women are, you know. But for us, it's. I think there's a lot of talent out there doing a small, clever idea, and I just cannot help it. I want to put it into production. I want to, and I know that in Hey we do a lot of products each year, but it's simply because when I see something I just want this product to be accessible for a lot of people. It's a big joy to work in that way. But I will also say that it was not an easy journey. No. It's been a lot of, you know, like, we don't believe in this, or why is... but for us it was, we just continued, and today it's much more normal to have these smaller design objects in furniture stores than it was back in time. It was lighting and a blanket was acceptable, but a candle holder, and so it has been... but today it's like it was never a fight, you know. Today it's so normal, and it's a lot of companies are bringing these smaller objects into...
But do you think it will affect the way brands are thinking? I mean, I know Vitra, they're doing their accessory collection, and that's nothing... I mean, it's very natural now. Do you think it will affect the way they work? And how do you... You've done it very successfully. It's a very strong Hey feeling in the accessories. But it's not necessarily that easy, perhaps, to bring traditional furniture brand and pair it with accessories. I don't. Or what do you think?
I think for us it's been very natural because my passion is for smaller objects and my husband's is for furnitures and new technologies. So it's more or less like two companies in one. So I think everyone can do it, but it has to be other people who does it, because I could never make a chair or make a decision to do this chair, not because I don't have the skills for it. Of course, my husband and I, we work very close together, but also for accessories and colors, you need to act quick, because if you you feel like purple is the new color, and if it will take 3 years before the purple color is out in the store, purple is over. So you need to react very quickly, and you need to... I have some very good people around me, and like you said, Kasper, that good things happen when you have a discussion or a dialogue, and I have a very close relationship to the people I work with, and if we are more who likes the same, we believe in it, and we go for it. And I think there has been a lot of like this... I feel very fortunate, because if I was hired in another company and I was asked to do an accessories collection, then I think I would never have been able to do it, because every time you bring maybe a little, then you will meet a lot of no, or are you sure, and it's just some... I remember, you know, we have this Kaleido tray, our small, done by Claire von Zweiberg, and I was so happy for this object, and I had a little prototype, and I showed it to some of our best clients in a very early stage, and none of them reacted. And I was like, what? And I'm very glad that I continued the project, but it could so easily have been stopped, because it was... and today it's a very important product for our collection. It's been... So it's to dare to do it, and I don't think that some of the accessories will have this long lifetime, for example, as a new chair or something. It is more like the fashion. Comes in, goes out. Now stationery is very... next year it will maybe be kitchen, or... I don't think so, but I mean, it's... I feel for... Our furniture collection refers more to the architecture, and our accessories is more into the fashion and in art. And
And Kasper, I mean, in Sweden we look a lot at Denmark and the entrepreneurship going on and the companies working there. Can you feel, how is it to be based in Denmark as a designer today? Can you feel this vibe of entrepreneurship, or are the companies distressing each other?
Well, I think there is maybe a certain vibe after Hey has come to the market, and we see a lot of smaller companies coming after you, and and it's interesting to watch it. But I don't think it has changed much. I mean, the one thing I can be a little worried about is that we see a lot of production moving out, and also a thing that Thomas and we have talked a lot about is it's so important to have a certain kind of production within different materials such as wood and plastics and aluminium. It's so important to have it close in the development phase, and I think that's a little bit a pity that a lot of production is going away, because it's a long way. I mean, if you should travel to China every time, I think you would pollute a lot. I mean, so it's also a sustainable thinking I have here.
But how is it for you, Luke? Do you work with do you visit the manufacturing sites a lot, or is it a lot of long distance?
It's almost all visiting, although we are doing an airline seat at the moment, and I don't even know where it's being made.
No.
And so we have Skypes with a bunch of engineers in California who I've never met.
Okay.
And that's really alien.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. So we had a very difficult phone call yesterday, for example, because we're talking about a process. I haven't seen the machinery.
No.
I don't know quite what they can do. So we're having to second guess. And I would agree with Kasper. I think the understanding of the making and the production processes and being able to get contact to them is very, very important, which is probably very much an Artek sort of core value. It's the process and the product being so related to the process. And I think this is, especially in the world of furniture, it's absolutely intrinsic to it feeling right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can draw something, you can make it work, but it doesn't feel natural. And I think the best furniture that endures feels natural. And it's a synergy between a sort of craft engineering and design and aesthetics. It's when all things overlap and produce a kind of poetry. So for us, we tend to, and Tom and I were talking at lunch about being busy and saying we can't go to this development meeting, and then saying, well, what happens if that critical conversation doesn't take place? Because it can be the tiniest moments that actually are pivotal and change the product from being mundane or average to being special. And it can come from anybody in the meeting at any moment.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think closeness to the process and really open communication and dialogue are critical. And a kind of respect that anybody can bring something to the table on that front and generate a kind of cataclysmic or catalyzed moment. You know.
Yeah, I don't want to end this conversation on a negative note, but it would be interesting with all these changes that we brought up, also with the different markets and economy and the stronger competition and more products. What do you think would be, looking ahead, the core, like some aspects that we really need to be concerned about and careful about ahead of us? If you want to start, Luke, and then we could just...
I think I just want to follow on from something Kasper said, which was making less better and less often. And I think in a way it doesn't apply to all industries, and maybe, as you said, the accessories, part of their vitality is the pace and the fact that this color is right for 6 months maybe, and that's okay. But I think at the same time there's another side. We've all got used to the idea of things being increasingly cheap. And I think we need to start doing the opposite and saying, actually, I need to save up for this thing. This thing is worth investing for. Like a good relationship, you know, it takes some energy, continued energy. And we used to hand down our furniture from our parents. So, you know, you'd get your mum's kitchen table and it was her mum's kitchen table. That's historical now. But I think as energy, resources and things become more important, maybe you buy one table in your life rather than 3. Actually, within the scheme of the economy, it will still work. It's just a different value system. So I would like things to slow down a bit. And maybe that would allow things to recalibrate financially.
It's good.
Yeah, that was quite a comprehensive statement.
Sorry.
Thank you. I think I fully adhere to that. This question of what's meaningful is certainly something that's at the core of our activities. And also listening to Mette, I think there are these two things. There's these things that are meant to stay, and then there are the things that are meant to give joy. And that's also meaningful, because in a way, we're part of a material culture. And I think to find this balance between the things that are meant to last, the things that give joy, but also in an intelligent way, that's what our industry is confronted with.
I just read in the newspaper that now it's over 50% of the people that are married are getting divorced, and you can say that a little bit with products as well. I mean, we have this very need for these very short-term relations, and that's interesting. I mean, what is happening in the world since we don't stay together and we don't want to have a product for a long time? I mean, like Luke said, that we want cheaper and faster, and we want to change everything all the time. And it's just interesting to watch it, and also a little critical, I think.
Very much so.
I feel extremely like we have been in the business for 12 years now, but I feel like in many ways we just started. We have a lot of energy. We work with so many nice, interesting, clever people who have great new things to show us, and we have a big passion and love to bring these products out, and it can be a little box of matchboxes with a beautiful pattern, or it can be a new chair by the bull legs, or it can be a new blanket or a new sofa. Or for me, it doesn't matter so much about price, but just if it's a nice functional product brings something. And it can be with a classic thing, so it's a product that will be for many years, but it can also be a little thing which makes you smile, and you know, instead of buying a bouquet of flowers for your friend, you'll come with a little candle holder, or you know, some of the nice things you just Vitra was showing in Paris. You know, like I think, for example, that there's a lot of people who have the love for Girard, and now they can buy a little piece of accessory and bring something. Also because people, they start already in the age of 10 years to be interested in design today.
Yeah, that's true.
And you know, it's not a Eames lounge chair that they can buy now, but maybe they will be the customer for the future. So I think that's also changed a lot, that it's a bigger group of people who are interested in design today. So
that's a nice note. We have time for one single question, so I don't know if anyone dare to raise their hand. Unfortunately, we ran out a bit of time. We have a microphone here. Is there anyone who has the courage? If not, I'm sure you could go privately and ask them some question afterwards if you want. No question? No. Then I want you to give a very big applause. I'm very happy with this very nice conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.